the recorded version of the show for sure. I just clicked the live, so we're just now live. I think they actually missed the introduction, which is something we're going to have to do next time, which is fine. We're learning as we go, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I
So
have a big learning curve.
the curve is big. um,
Curve is big.
yes. So just for the before we get into the meat and potatoes, let me just say that you guys are watching Devil's Advocate on the Copiosis YouTube channel. Feel free to go to copiosis.com to find out more about this exciting innovation and the things we're doing to make it that's the wrong word. The exciting things we're doing to usher it in as our new economic reality. And then if you're interested in participating in financing what we're doing, please go to our Patreon page where we are inviting people to provide us with the funding that we need to expand our work. Everything that we spend the money on is listed on Patreon, and so you can see where the money goes. And then finally, if you haven't already, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and click the link to get the updates and alerts of new programming as we put it out. There's a lot more content coming out from our action group, and so there's going to be a lot of good stuff we're going to be sharing here in the future. So I'm Perry Gruber, the founder of Copiosis, and I have my guest, or not my guest, my co-host. What am I talking about? My co-host, Jill the Pill Dell, who is the Devil's Advocate, and she is here to ask me and talk about the thorny questions about Copiosis, and hopefully these questions and answers will be informative to you all who are participating. And if you have any questions, at some point we'll be happy to address questions from the audience when more people are watching the show, and we'll open up the comment section to do that. But in the meantime, if you have a comment and you want us to read it on the air, just put a comment in the comment section, and if we have time, we will get to that. Just be clear that we're constrained to an hour. So we're going to do a break every 20 minutes, and we're going to try and fit in as many questions and answers as we can, but this is free form, and so we really don't know where we're going to go, right, Jill?
Right. We just never know what path we're going to wander down.
That's right. So speaking of paths wandering down, you had something you wanted to start out with.
Yeah. I guess, what I want to say to people who maybe haven't listened to previous videos or whatever is that, after a great deal of research, Copiosis is the only social economic system I've found that takes away the power of wealth and still allows the owners of that wealth to retain that wealth, which to me is the only fair way to do it. So, and it's the only way you're going to get the extreme wealthy on board with a system like this. So, that's to me the most powerful thing that it does right away. And then all the other wonderful, beautiful things that happen as a result of that control being lifted from people, it is unlimited. It's just unlimited, what we can do.
It really is, and I've done a lot of research too, and in fact, if the audience goes to the downloads page of the download store of the Copiosis website, we have put together a matrix. Probably need to update that a little bit, but we put together a matrix that compares all of the or most of the new ideas in our ecosystem against Copiosis, and you can see for yourself that there are some things that we do that no other system does. And actually, Jill, the one that you're talking about isn't on that list. So this is a really important thing because look, if you have an idea and you want to make it a reality and it shifts society out of capitalism into your idea, you have to find a way to bring the wealth of the rich with you, or else it's a non-starter, because the wealthy have they have all the power essentially, and so it's going to be very difficult for you to do your transition if you penalize the rich in some way, right, Jill?
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. And not only that, but even just the average person, if you take away all their wealth, why would they want to? There's no reason for them to, they have to survive. So even though their housing and all this stuff might be provided for them, if you've taken away their wealth, what, that's not fair. They've worked their whole lives for something, for what they have.
Yeah,
So,
a lot
so
of rich people, a lot of a lot of ordinary people, I mean, may not have a lot of net wealth, but the wealth that they do have, they've put a lot of effort into accumulating. And if a new idea strips that away, you're going to have a lot of not happy people.
yeah, well, what's the point of it?
Yeah.
There's no right. You can take the monopoly board and put all the money in a pot and spread it all around the monopoly board again, and the same thing is going to happen. That wealth is, if you're using the same systems that we currently have now, people are just going to we'll be back in the same situation. So we have to change something about what we're doing to get to a new place that is better for all, right? Like,
Absolutely. Yep.
uh, uh, our hearts and our souls know that the world can be such a better place if we had more freedom to make it so.
And one of the
So,
challenges that we run up against when we talk about this kind of thing is this. In fact, I was just having a conversation on the social group about this. Is that people think that this new and better world that you're talking about somehow levels the playing field for everybody in terms of the outcomes. Like
yeah,
like someone was complaining to me on the social group about how 56 flavors of ice cream is too many flavors of ice cream. It represents the gluttony of America, but it's like you can't decide. We can't decide how many flavors of ice cream there's going to be. We can't make those decisions. It's not up to us to make those decisions. It's up to us to create a world where people have equal access to opportunity. And that's very similar to 56 flavors of ice cream. Some people's opportunity are going to look different than other people's opportunity. So we have to maximize the amount of opportunity available, and that looks different for different people.
yeah, yeah. What you consider a great opportunity, um, maybe it's traveling the world surfing. It's a
Yes.
great opportunity, like, or mine might be, creating the best solar panels ever invented, right? Like,
Yes.
we each have our own thing. So as long as you truly have the freedom to uh, follow those passions,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is what this is about,
Mm-hmm.
creating freedom so people can actually follow their passions.
That's right. That's right.
Now the way they're going to get paid is how their passions fit the algorithm, equation. And I think it's important for people to, get that math equation too, to understand that algorithm. But one of the things that sort of I've noticed that kind of freak people out is, okay, so, as we've discussed in these previous videos, you've made me all whole and everything, but they're saying, okay, well, where does all this NBR, which is equivalent to wealth, come from? Just comes out of thin air if you're not exchanging wealth. Like, if I'm not paying you for your thing and that's how you get wealth, or does this just come out of thin air? But it's still really hard for people to comprehend. But you know, I don't know. I guess I see it as wealth is being created every day that didn't exist before, and it's being created by governments printing money, or it's being created by um, companies like banks and financial institutions. When they give you a credit card, that money didn't exist before. But when you go make it money by using that card, now you have wealth. Now you have money that's been created, wealth for the bank. So anyway, let's talk about, like, if we're looking at, like, we're converting to Copiosis, right?
Yeah.
That's where we're headed, and how that picture looks.
Yep.
So let's say the United States, we've come to this decision. The United States has decided, yeah, we've done, everybody wants it, right? So how do we, okay, so how do we do things like pay off our national debt? How can we get other countries to accept NBR as having any value to them? They can, when it's only based on, you're not giving them NBR to purchase their sprinkler or whatever, the sprinkler made in China. There's an exchange of currency. So now there's no more exchange of that currency. So is the U.S. going to have to be completely independent, have no trade with any other country? I mean, what's the plan?
Yeah. So this question is illustrative of how complex such a proposal is, transitioning to a new economic system. There is so much, you use the word wealth, I'm going to use the word value. There's so much value that is exchanged between nations and people within, between different nations. There's wealth and value being transferred all over the place. And with
Yes.
regard to national debt, it's a really important question, because if you can't if you can't figure out a way to transfer the wealth represented by the national debt into this new system, your system is dead on arrival, because the nations aren't going to be willing to go for it, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to be willing to go for it.
Yeah. Where's my money?
That's exactly right.
My money.
Yeah.
Right?
And so with when we get to the point where a first mover nation, and it doesn't have to be the United States, it might be
Germany
Taiwan.
or
Yeah, it could be anybody. Yeah.
India or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But once we get a first mover nation underway, and it's a couple of years beyond the transition, the momentum behind their success is going to suck every other nation into copiosis, because the nations that are not in copiosis will not be able to compete with the nations with the nation that has transitioned to copiosis, in the sense of quality of life for citizenry and opportunity for citizenry. Because so let's just use the United States, because I'm expecting the United States to be the first one. So all of a sudden, no U.S. citizen has any debt. They can do whatever they want. They get rewarded when they do those things, and those things create value. All their health care is provided to them. Their housing is, if it's necessity housing, is free and clear. Or if it's their legacy housing, so if they already had the house before the transition, it's free. Yeah, it's free and clear. The in my opinion, the economic activity within the nation exponentially increases, because now more things are recognized as economically viable and valuable than capitalism recognizes. So anyone outside of the United States, unless they're getting bogus news about what's happening in the United States, are going to be like, I want to be in the United States, where I can get all of these, in their words, these free things. It's not free, but I want to go where the opportunity is greatest, in the United States, and copiosis is that. But like you said, there's a big question. How do you get from here to there relative to the national debt? So let's look at the national debt.
Okay.
The national debt, I believe, by the way, we don't do any homework before we have this show. So some of the things we might talk about are not. Yes.
Okay.
So some of the things I may say may not be accurate. I'm just speaking from my basic knowledge. So the national debt, the deficit, represents the trade deficit, represents the balance or the imbalance between goods and services we export compared to goods and services we import. We also have a national debt, which I think represents the amount of money we as a nation owe to other countries. Is that right? Basically?
Well, it can be countries, it can be individual investors, like people that buy, treasury bonds, things like that. The mortgage market, all of that sort of all ties into the national debt, right? So, and it's basically we've been borrowing money to bail out capitalism
Mm-hmm.
for a long time now, and it just it's difficult to know really how all that money has been spent, right? But regardless of who we owe it to, where there's Joe Blow down the street or the country of China, we have to have some method to compensate them for that investment that they've
Correct.
made,
Now,
right?
all of that debt that is held by U.S. citizens moving into Copiosis, we've already talked about that. That's an easy peasy job.
Done. It's
Right,
done,
right.
right?
It's done.
Okay.
But
It's done.
for investors outside of the United States, we have to find some way to compensate those people. And there are there's probably a menu of options that we would create. And of course, we don't have to have the answer to this question, the definitive answer to this question. We can speculate, but the smarter people than us are going to figure this out as we move closer to the transition. But here are some potential options as I see it.
Okay.
The first way is we could compensate those investors in MBR. Now, so these are people who are not inside of the Copiosis economy. So their
Right.
MBR is worthless unless they're consuming a luxury inside of the Copiosis nation. So
Right. Unless they're getting goods or services from the Copiosis nation, they could use their NBR. So so we one of the ways is, okay, so let's just say China, right? It's a communist country, centrally controlled. They control all the wealth, they control all the money, they control all the resources. So, maybe we could just say, okay, well, we're going to give you, because you're still a communist country and you're still centrally controlled, we're going to give you this one-time gift
well, it
of
wouldn't be a
envy.
gift. It wouldn't be a gift. It'd be a repayment, right?
Right, well, right, but it's a one-time payment
Yeah.
of NPR to your central authority, and you can do with it what you want. But we're calling it even Steven.
And
Okay.
and how does that decision happen, Jill? It can't happen unilaterally. It has to happen in the context of diplomacy. So the diplomats
Right.
from China and the diplomats from the United States will come to the table and they'll figure it out like we figured out every other treaty. And
Exactly.
and some of the answer might look like this. It might say so let's talk about China, the United States. It might say, well, so the Chinese are saying, well, historically you've given us 10 tons of wheat every year. So in order to compensate us for the investments in your land, in your nation, we would like, instead of 12, 24 tons a year for the next 10 years. And
Okay.
also we've been benefiting from consulting services from XYZ company. We would like a 10-year contract for consulting services from those countries. And we've been getting 18 tons of milk from you for
Whatever.
throughout history. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
negotiating all these products and services that they've gotten historically and still see value in forward
Right.
into the future. And then at the end of that period, all of the debt is gone. It's duly compensated for.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
so they're also extra national or foreign investments in property in the United States.
Yes.
So
Same thing.
right?
Negotiate all that. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so
But the you know the
Jill, can you hold your thought for a second?
sure.
Hold your thought because it's 20 after and we need to go do a break
Okay.
real quick. So
All right.
so you viewers, you're watching Devil's Advocate with Jill Dell and Perry Gruber. If you want to find out more about copiosis, I'm not looking at the camera because I'm also producing the show. If you're wanting to find out more about copiosis, you can go to our website, copiosis.com, and learn more about what we're talking about. We have a ton of information there. And then if you know a bit about copiosis and you want to join the conversation about copiosis, feel free to join us on Facebook at the Copiosis Social Group. Just go to Facebook and search for Copiosis Social Group, and it'll show up. And join us there. And there are lots of people who are participating in a dynamic conversation about copiosis. And then finally, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to this channel and get alerts on our future shows, not just live streams like Devil's Advocate, but other live streams that we may be doing in the future and other videos that we'll be posting in the future. We're generating a ton of content. We're excited about it, and we're excited about sharing it with you. So, go ahead, Jill. You were talking about we were talking about property investments.
Property investments, and so there'd have to be some way to compensate foreigners that have investments in this country, with and those foreigners might actually be some type of corporation, you know, and so there's going to have to be negotiations on, okay, we'll pay you an NBR.
We might also
But
pay them in US dollars for the time
yeah,
period that the transition is happening. So remember, what we're doing is we're going to be one scenario is copiosis is active in parallel with capitalism. So
hmm
and the corporations outside of the United States might think speculatively that having MBR is more valuable than having US dollars. So they might say we want
yeah,
MBR.
yeah, but in Copiosis, those corporations aren't going to exist, at least in the United States. So a corporation, like I don't know, like Nike or Google or somebody that's global that has other companies in other countries. Uh, well, the complexity of all of that is just kind of mind-boggling, right?
Well, most of the complexity is legal complexity, because essentially what we have happening is, let's take Nike for example. I actually thought you were going to talk about a company that's outside of the nation, the U.S. that has operations here, like HBC or um,
Right.
Deutsche Bank or something like that. But let's use Nike. So Nike has plants all over the country and sales outlets all over the country and or all over the world. And all that's happening is people who are producers under the organization that we call Nike are creating net benefit value by serving people in other countries. And those
Right.
people, the people who are serving those people in other countries, get rewarded MBR. Now, of course, they can't use their MBR in a non-copiosis nation, right? So
Right.
we have to figure out some way of of creating what's it called a securities market or an exchange for MBR to whatever um, current currency exists where someone is. So if someone's in
Yeah.
China working for Nike, we would need some
Their
sort of
NBR converted to from NBR to their currency or from their currency to NBR.
correct.
Right.
And the people
Just like it is today, where Canadian dollar's worth this against our dollar, and euro's worth this against our dollar, whatever that is, right?
yeah, and now think about it, Jill. We at Copiosis don't need to figure that out because anyone who does figure it out, and someone's going to because they see an opportunity to get rich in Copiosis, because if you create a system that allows people to exchange NBR for Chinese RMB, for example, the yuan,
Yeah,
that creates a lot of net benefit value. So anyone who
Yeah.
creates that mechanism and manages it over time is going to create a lot of net benefit value and get a lot of MBR for it. So we don't
Yeah.
have to figure it out. Someone else is going to figure it out on our behalf.
Yeah. Well, the other option is that Nike could just say, listen, you know, we want to make you wealthy. We want you to keep working for us, doing what you're doing. So we're gonna eliminate your debt. We're gonna provide you with housing and healthcare and all of your utilities and everything, just like you know the people in the U.S. have now. And we're going to pay you an NBR that you can use to buy luxuries from the US, or that you can use and convert to money in your country, you
That's
know?
right. That's right. Now think about this though. There are some. So let's say I'm a Nike employee working in Vietnam. Uh,
Okay.
I'm not eating at the Kentucky Fried Chicken probably in Vietnam. I'm probably eating the local foods, and so
Yes. How do
those
you get them provided to you, right?
yes those
Right?
that local restaurant is not in Copiosis, so they're not going to give me my food at no cost to me. They're going to want me to
Yeah.
pay some whatever the
Right.
Vietnamese yeah.
They might have to convert their, I don't know. So how, yeah, 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 yeah.
Same thing with
But
electricity, same thing with sewer, same thing
all
with
that,
rent. Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that probably wouldn't work, um, but they might pay a portion in their dollars and pay a portion in NBR for, eh, and identifying how they're contributing to the Nike product or whatever, and reward them with NBR for what they're doing, right? Um, and give them NBR that is uh, equivalent to what they would be earning if uh, their country was as wealthy as the US. So instead of getting their, buck 25 a day, they would be getting, $100 in NBR a day for doing what they're doing.
Yeah,
And
that's an interesting perspective, Jill. I hadn't even thought about that. So a Vietnamese employee of Nike who lives in Vietnam and is a Vietnamese citizen would not be
mhm,
a Copiosis citizen, or maybe they could
no,
opt into it. So in the diplomatic treaty negotiations, it could be any 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 foreign national, like a Vietnamese citizen that works
sure,
for a formerly U.S. corporation, now
yes,
has dual citizenship, so they can be a Vietnamese citizen and they can be a Copiosis citizen, and that way, Copiosis, the algorithm can reward that person in MBR, and then
hmm,
they can exchange that for whatever the money that they use in
so
Vietnam. Yeah,
their country. Hmm.
exactly. And it's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think what would happen, and this is total speculation, is that so any nation that goes to Copiosis, their legal tender will be replaced by MBR. So the dollar would disappear, and
yes,
a couple of things could happen. I doubt the first one will happen. The first one is the NBR, a unit of NBR, will replace in value dollars. So right now across the world, I think you tell me you're in finance. Across the world right now, is the dollar the basis of currency exchange around the world? Like, does it set
yeah.
the standard? Yeah, yeah,
It's converted to the dollar.
yes. And so,
Yeah.
so like, if you look at this, isn't as good an example because the dollar still exists, but like cryptocurrencies, their value, I think, again, remember, audience, we're speculating here, and some of our information may not be accurate, but I think
You're,
cryptocurrencies on exchanges are based on the value of the dollar. And so that's where they get their value from. So, like right
right.
now, Bitcoin is around $17,000 a coin. So,
Uh-huh.
so in the same way, I would imagine either a unit of MBR would become the base unit, which I doubt because it'll be brand new, or whatever dominant currency, global currency there is that's number two under the dollar will become the standard. So then we would peg NBR to that standard, whether it's the RMB or the German Deutsch or the
euro,
British pound or the euro. Yeah, maybe the euro.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's kind of a big history around how that, that basis changed from Europe after World War II to the United States.
And it can change again. There's precedent for it. That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
And so here's the thing that makes all of this eminently possible. When enough people around the world, and it's not just going to be in the United States, when enough people around the world feel like you feel about Copiosis, the momentum of people wanting it is going to cause all the solutions we need to come to the fore, including the solutions we need in the realm of finances and debt, in terms of international debt. So,
right, exactly.
Yeah. So I'm not worried about.
It's going to work itself out, right?
That's right.
It's going to work itself out.
That's right.
Okay, so one of the things that I think is important to talk about is you've been doing this for a long time. What, like 7-8 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
How have you kept from getting discouraged?
Well, in the early years, I was discouraged from time to time.
Yeah.
But what kept me going, and what keeps me going now, well, what kept me going then, before there was a lot of evidence of people coming on board and getting excited like I am, was the feeling I had when I first encountered the idea that's now called Copiosis. I just felt a visceral clarity, just like a knowing that this was the thing. And I also felt, prior to encountering it, that I had this kind of role to play. And so the two came together at the same time and space, and it just felt like an explosion within me of like, this is the thing. So so that's kept me going. And then also what came out of that kind of explosion were a bunch of insights, or prognostications is a little bit too strong a word, but just knowings that certain things were going to happen. Like if I put up a website, people would ask questions and come and find out more. If I talked about it on social media, I would encounter people who are as excited about it as I am. And eventually people would start helping by providing money to support us. And so throughout these years, Jill, those things have come true. And as more things come true relative to what I thought would happen, the belief I have in Copiosis becomes more and more sure. And so today, there's just so much momentum of evidence showing up that we are moving forward. I just can't not believe it.
Yeah. So, it's all right. So how can how can people, so for me, what I've been doing, there's so much negativity, right? People are just whining and complaining and blah, blah, blah. And I don't blame them. I mean, there's lots of going on, right?
Yeah.
And so what I have been doing on social media is just responding in the comment section. Okay, what is your solution? What is your solution? You're complaining about this. What is your solution? And to me, of course, I'm getting on board with the solution is a completely new social economic program. But people are like, it's communism. Oh, it's socialism. Oh, that's just liberal stuff. And we're just, it's like, people have such they're dug in.
Yeah.
They are dug into it, and they ain't gonna budge. I mean, bless my brother's heart. He doesn't recycle because that's a liberal thing, you know? But I have hope in the younger generation, which are feeling, I think, extreme pressure because they don't have the opportunities that I had when I was young. The housing is just takes all their resources, medical care costs, all these things just gobble up every penny they make. And beyond that, they have to take out credit and loans and everything just to get to a place where they can survive.
Yeah. So let me address some of these comments you've made. So it's accurate to say that, at least in the United States, but probably elsewhere, people are really entrenched in their beliefs, and they believe
Yes.
that their beliefs are true, and they are true for them. What a lot of people miss, I think, in their immersion in our current reality, our current society, is new things are coming out all the time, and the adoption curve of these new things is pretty standard. The early adopters are super excited about it. They get so excited they talk to other people. There are some people then the late adopter, or the laggards, not the laggards, the leading edge of the mainstream comes on board. Then the mainstream comes on board, which is the bigger part of America or bigger part of a society, and then the laggards come on. So there's this big bell-shaped curve where most of the people are under the hump of the curve.
Mm-hmm.
If you've so there are a lot. So let's take the internet and social media, for example. Even today, there are a lot of people who don't get on social media.
Mm-hmm.
But there are enough people who are on social media such that social media thrives. In the same way, I believe there's going to be a lot of people who do not get on board with Copiosis. But there will be enough people on board that Copiosis will thrive. And so not everybody, let's take mobile phones for example. Not everybody has an iPhone. Not everyone has a Samsung or Android phone. But
or a smartphone, any
right,
kind.
right.
Mm-hmm.
But nearly everybody has a phone.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
so the benefit of having a mobile phone, the benefit of having a phone is so overwhelmingly beneficial that even
Yes.
those who are like your brother is about recycling as it relates to phones have a
Yeah.
phone. They may not like having a phone, but they have one, and
That one.
they
Yeah.
benefit as a result of having one. I think
Right.
Copiosis is going to unfold the same way, and
Yeah.
over time, as more people adopt and participate in Copiosis, it's going to be just like phones and cars and air travel for long distances,
Right.
and computers for productivity. We're just
Yeah.
going to see more and more people gradually coming on board because it offers so many benefits, just like the phone does.
Okay. So to me, and the other thing is, I think that people are really starting to recognize is that we are at a great conjunction,
Yes.
a great alignment of the planets, if you want to call it that, that we can go down an uncontrolled, we can, and I won't put it, we can go down a road controlled by less than 100 people on the earth, or we can rethink and think for ourselves and imagine the possibilities of a different path
Yes.
that is controlled by each and every human's activities around the globe, you
Yeah.
know?
Let's take a quick break because it's 40 after. So for those of you who are watching live, this is the Copiosis live stream called Devil's Advocate. Here we're talking about the thorny issues of making copiosis a reality. Jill Dell here with me, Perry Gruber, the founder of Copiosis. We're excited about you being here. If you're interested in finding out more about Copiosis, you can go to copiosis.com where we have a ton of information for newbies and for advanced people. There's a lot of advanced information there. Oh, and by the way, we're going to be launching the new advanced shit section of the website soon as well. If you are interested in finding out or interacting with people who are talking about copiosis, you can join us on our Copiosis social group on Facebook by searching on Facebook for the words Copiosis social group, and you'll be taken there. And then you can request membership, and pretty much everyone who requests to become a member becomes a member. And then lastly, if you are not a subscriber to our YouTube channel, I suggest and recommend heartily that you subscribe and click that bell so that you get notified of all the live streams we're producing and other content that we're loading. We're going to be loading a lot more content over the next several months as we stand up even more our YouTube presence. So thank you for watching. All right, so yeah,
Okay.
so I want to just respond to what you said before the break. Respond to it. So yes, the control that's going to happen when it's disseminated per individual in copiosis is it's going to be control of an individual's individual experience, and that's all. You're not going to be able to control other people's experience because you just don't have the levers to do that in copiosis.
Right.
And then the other
Right.
thing I wanted to say was with what you commented on earlier about children, these younger people who don't have the opportunities that you have. And I want to talk about the angst that white people are experiencing, and I want to talk about the angst that Republicans are experiencing, and I want to talk about the angst that Christians are experiencing, and I want to talk about the angst that liberals are all the angst that people are experiencing. It's all the same.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
all of this angst, including young people's inability to afford housing in terms of the American dream, all of this pressure that pretty much everyone is feeling is indicative of our forward progress. It's forcing everyone in their own particular experience, whether Republican, Christian, liberal, young,
Right.
old, it's having this pressure is having its way with us so that we get out of our comfort zone being comfortable with something that needs to turn into something else. And so in my experience and opinion, I say bring more of this angst on, because the more that comes, the more people are going to be open to looking at something that they once thought was outrageous. I mean, today UBI is being looked at, and 20 years ago, although there are people that were advocating for UBI, most people didn't even know what UBI was.
Well, what is UBI?
So it's universal basic income. It's the income that Andrew
Right.
Yang
Yeah,
is.
a lot of
Yeah.
people are talking about that now and how that should be a thing, and then people are going, well, how do you pay for that? Yeah.
Yes. And
Where does
and
that come from?
and if you notice,
Taxpayer?
if you
You're
notice,
just going to pay yourself to pay yourself. You're just going to pay the government to pay yourself. I mean, what the heck?
well, see, this is what I'm saying, is that there is so much evidence of what we're doing with copiosis having been done already with other things, and UBI is one of those things. So the questions you asked long ago were like stumped questions that would stump people, but now most people, there were some people that had answers back 20 years ago,
Right.
but
Sure.
now
Yeah.
now more people are looking at UBI as an actual feasible thing. And I believe that once UBI is implemented, it's going to make going to copiosis that much easier, because people will get used to receiving money separate from what they do from their 9 to 5. Same with universal health care. It leads to copiosis too, because people will begin to see that they don't have to necessarily pay out of their pocket for their health care. Those two things are heading towards NBR being rewarded for the value you create, and healthcare being coming at no cost to you.
Yeah. I mean, in Copiosis, you deal with where those funds are coming from.
Yeah,
In our current system,
I know where you're going.
those funds are coming from a taxpayer.
Yes.
And now, if you're a taxpayer and you're already stressed out, in socialist countries, some socialist countries, their taxes are 50% of their income to support all of those things that you were just talking about.
Right. Right.
Basically.
So think about it, Jill. Think about it. So here we are in the future. UBI has become a thing, and if Andrew Yang has his way, the money that is going to be supporting UBI is going to be. I think he says it's going to be a little bit of tax on everybody, but mostly it's going to be cuts in areas of spending that can withstand the cuts. And I don't remember what those areas were, but
you want Peter to pay Paul again.
Yes. So now, so we're in this UBI future. Let's say it's 5 years in the future. And then in year 7, we reach the tipping point with Copiosis. And so now we say, look, America, you're getting this UBI, and here's what it's costing you. It's possible to get 10 times the benefit you get from UBI, or 100 times, or whatever the multiple is, without having to pay a dime in taxes or anything else to get those things. Now, don't you think, and you won't even have to pay taxes. So don't you think that a UBI enabled society would look at Copiosis and say that's the natural next step?
Right. Well, don't we sort of already have a portion of our society that's in UBI?
Being who?
Well, the people that are on, welfare with HUD housing and, Social Security's disability insurance. I mean, we have a significant portion of society which is already on UBI, I guess. I mean, I'm on Social Security, which is basically, I paid into it, but it's still a social program that is supported by charging people earning money today. My son-in-law calls it the biggest Ponzi scheme there is, right? So we have lots of people already in that system.
Yeah,
that sort of system where you're taxed to pay for social programs is doomed to failure.
Well,
when the people that are earning the money, which has generally been the workforce, is significantly reduced by automation and AI and all the artificial intelligence that's self-driving trucks and all the automation that is going to take place, so that the corporations make more profits because they don't have to pay a person. They can just build a machine to do it. So it's not a viable alternative, in my opinion.
Well,
we have to have.
Well, I was just going to say, just like everything else that is turning out to be non-viable, I think when we get to those points, again, it's like the perfect runway. When we get to the points where those things are starting to crumble, just like we're beginning to see capitalism do that, people will be more open to what once were outlandish ideas. And Copiosis, this is why Copiosis is taking the time it's taking to roll out, is because the timing isn't right yet for it to be fully adopted. And more churn, more AI job displacement, UBI, universal health care, maybe the destruction of Social Security. All of these things have to happen first before humanity is willing to look seriously at Copiosis. Yes.
Well, I hope it doesn't get to that point, because then I think you're on this verge of catastrophe and chaos and a complete breakdown of civilization and society.
Yeah,
I hope
I don't think it's all going to happen
get
at
smart,
once.
figure it out before it comes to that sort of collapse.
Well,
You know,
I don't see it as a collapse, Jill. It's not all gonna happen at once. Something's gonna go wrong, then we're gonna deal with it. And we'll have some solution, a band-aid in place. Then something else is it's like your car. Your car just doesn't give up the ghost all at once. It starts with the
right?
alternator, then it's the battery, then it's the timing belt, then it's the injectors, and you just try to fix those things as they go just to keep the car rolling. It's like and then finally you say, before the car totally gives up the ghost, you say, I need a new car. Right? It's kind of the same thing.
Exactly. Exactly. I see that we all need a new car right now, people. Hello. Get on board. You need a new dang car. That's so funny. My boyfriend I've been bugging him for a while now to buy a new car, right? And so I kind of pushed him, and he finally made a decision. He's like, wow, his car was like from the 90s. So it's like, wow,
Yeah, yeah.
so nice to have windows that you push a button and they.
So Jill, that's exactly the copiosis model, right? People are going to go into copiosis. They're going to be like, God, it's so nice to get food without having to pay for it.
It's so nice to not have to pay my bills, all these bills every month. I don't have any debt anymore.
Yes.
It's so nice to, like, be able to take some time and think about
Yes.
what do I always wanted to be this when I grew up, but now I actually can be.
Exactly. Exactly, Jill. It's the exact same experience. And this is the thing. I tell people all the time that there's evidence of copiosis happening today. And your illustration of what your boyfriend experienced in sitting in a new car is exactly what I'm talking about. People are having these experiences all over.
The time. Yeah. Well, I want to talk about, a little blip I heard. It's called Actionable Purpose.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I guess there are so many more sites coming up to support a sharing society.
Yeah.
So sharing toys or sharing furniture or sharing, we don't we are not forced to be in the capitalist system. If we begin sharing now, I don't need this coffee table anymore. It's in perfectly good shape, but I've rearranged my living room and I don't want it anymore. It doesn't serve my purpose. So here it is. Share it in this site. I don't have to drag it to Goodwill. Somebody in my community wants it and they come and get it, So, or I have this toy that is perfectly good, but my children have outgrown it. And then I'm going to give it. And then I can say, oh, well, that is a toy that they would love right now for their age. And, share that. So I think that we are starting to create more of a sharing economy because it makes sense.
Yeah, the challenge, it's not a challenge. The thing about sharing models is that you can't share your way into eliminating your mortgage. You can't.
Right.
You can't share your way into erasing your credit card bills. You can't share your way into having electricity unless you have some way to be an independent electricity producer, like having solar energy on your house that you capitalized yourself. So these kind of and sharing happens today. Like in my neighborhood, you'll see from time to time people will just put stuff on the curb and say for free, and then the next day it's gone, right? And so so in a lot of ways sharing is already happening, and it's a great thing. I'm not denigrating the idea of sharing. It's just not going to get us to where we're all debt free and we're all
no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying now is Copiosis isn't here yet, right?
Yeah.
It isn't here yet. So how can we give people the sort of experience of what copiosis
Oh,
can be like
right.
just by participating in sharing systems, or sharing apps or whatever that have been put into place to share items in your community. And the thing is if I need a coffee table and I can find it for no cost
Mm-hmm.
in this sharing group,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm not spending my dollars consuming, and all of the association. So I'm not spending those dollars, so I can apply that $200 that I was going to spend on a table to my Visa bill, to a
Right.
payment on my Visa bill, right?
Right.
And if that sharing systems could be expounded and expounded and expounded, there'll be less crap going into the landfills. There will be less goods consumed, right?
Maybe,
So,
maybe. I mean, we have a lot of these things happening right now, Jill, and it doesn't significantly expand. And one of the reasons I think is the same reason why our demonstration projects early on didn't expand very well, and that is that people are just too busy to participate in such an administrative process. I think as with regard to showing people how copiosis can work, I think our demonstration project that we're planning is going to be the best way, where people can come and immerse themselves on a piece of land specifically organized to provide a copiosis experience. Maybe it's for a weekend or maybe it's for a year, so that they can see
yeah,
in real life how it could actually happen, separated from the capitalist system. And so I
right,
think that's going to be our best bet. The sharing models are great. I'm not denigrating them at all. I just think
yeah,
that we need a more faithful representation of what copiosis is than trying to say this sharing
yeah,
model is an example of what happens in copiosis. Well, not it's not really like that. So we're
yeah,
we're at the end of our hour, and it's been a full
right.
one. So I just want to say thank you to the people who have been watching the show live. Thank you very much for watching it after the fact, the recorded version. We meant to have Jarek Spigner, our CTO, on this week, but he and I had a scheduling conflict and we were not able to make it happen. But he promises he'll be on next week and we'll take on the bigger questions of the technology and the data that's generated from copiosis and
Please hear
yeah,
yourself.
how that's going to happen. Jill's got some great questions
Yeah,
about that.
yeah,
And so, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We are excited about what we're talking about, as you can tell. We hope you're excited too. If you want to find out more, go to copiosis.com. If you're interested in becoming a patron, check out our Patreon page. And if you're interested in participating more in the social discourse that's happening on Facebook, join us on Facebook at the Copiosis Social Group. Thanks again for watching. We will see you next Tuesday, right, Jill?
yes, next Tuesday,
Yeah,
11 o'clock.
next Tuesday at 11
And
o'clock.
I just want to say, do it, do it. Go there, learn about it. You won't regret it. Come on.
You're so awesome. All right, bye everybody. Jill,
Thank you. Bye bye.
Don't go anywhere, Jill.
Okay.